Okay, so the way this worked was when you were young, you went to school, and you just went to school once when you were young. Then you fell in love, and you got married, and you did that once when you were young. Then you had a family, division of labor, husband went off and made some money in the world, and wife took care of the children. Kids grew up, were going to follow the same exact pattern. Kids went off to do that same pattern as the husbands retired, came home. Husband and wife went on a cruise, and then they died. And that was life. Very short, very prescribed. You knew exactly what you were supposed to do based on your age and and your gender. That pretty much told the story. But as we're seeing more people living longer, and we're seeing women entering the workforce and transforming the workforce with innovations like job sharing, sabbaticals, working from home, all kinds of things so that they can both have families and work and go back to school and take time off. We begin to see the emergence of a more cyclic life plan, where we take that longevity bonus instead of just tagging it on to the end of life so you're just older longer. You do things in your life like going back to school, having that second or third career, and combining having children with careers. That may look like working part-time or flex-time. That may look like taking off a few years and then going back to the job. And it may take a lot of interesting forms. For instance, I have a really close friend. She did a very interesting thing. She's a dentist, or she was a dentist. And she had a couple kids and let her kids grow up a little. She stayed home with them until they were 3 and 5 years old. And then she turned around and she said, I decided to be a dentist when I was 17 years old. I do not want to live with a 17-year-old's decision the rest of my life. So I'm going back to school. I'm going to be a psychologist. That really sounds like something I'd enjoy. And in fact, that's what she did. More people are doing this. More women are trying this. In fact, it's not just women. Men are starting to copycat. 2/3 of all women, when asked, say that they want to live a more cyclic life. That's what they desire. And in fact, that they are. But there's some trade-offs that are happening and that we're beginning to experience as we are the first generation to really try this out, try this new way of organizing our lives out. For one thing, when women leave the workforce and then often go back, it's usually about 2 years that they take off, and generally they never regain their career track. I don't know what happens, but they don't seem to regain their career track. They may start a new one, which is exciting, but there's also financial ramifications. They never quite make up the money that they lost from that. They never set aside the money in a 401k. They never save and invest in their future. And with women living longer than men, that is dire circumstance we're creating. So yes, let's live the Cyclic Life Plan, and let's learn from some of our early mistakes. Let's encourage both men and women to begin at a young age to set aside money so that if there's an emergency health situation, if they decide that they want to take a sabbatical and sail to Tahiti for 6 months, if they decide they want to stay home with their mom who's ailing or their child who they want to discover what they're like the first couple years of life, these are all reasons that they ought to start the saving early, men and women alike. And women do like the idea of reinventing themselves, and I'm all for this. Let me show you an example in our society, someone that we have seen since the 1980s transform herself continuously. It's Madonna, and just look at how this woman has changed how she looks, what she does, her family, and the kind of music she does. But all along, she's been on a success track kind of in our face. So, the last thing I want to talk about, and this is sort of a too big way of saying it, changing the world. Well, let's remember that women, for the most part, up until recently, their place was in the home. They never got outside the home for the most part. Now we're seeing critical mass of women outside in the world and beginning to put their print on the world. Beginning to realize if they're going to succeed, they're not going to have to act like a man. They're going to have to do it their way, do it differently. And we see it in corporate America, in the nonprofit sector, in media, and of course in politics. And let me begin by saying I have no political agenda. I am not here for Democrats, Republicans, or anyone. I'm just here more looking at the phenomenon in terms of how it's impacted gender politics. Hillary is an interesting example. Here's this powerful woman, part of a power couple, what I think of as a power couple, and she went out there and she got criticized quite a bit for being sort of the old school politician, for being sort of, I think of her as a sort of transitional figure, because she learned how to play ball with the big boys, and she got so good at it that she kind of learned how to do that and almost nothing else. Oftentimes people thought of her more as like Chicago, backroom, big cigar and mouth politician than a woman. And I think about halfway through her campaign, she started to realize that too, and began to change, became more of who her so-called authentic self might be. And it made a huge difference. She really connected more with her audience. But so I think we'll see Hillary Clinton making some more changes in the future. Oprah, of course, you can't have anything on women in power without bringing up Oprah. I mean, here's a true American rags to riches story. Came down from the lowest segments of society, made herself completely, has created a phenomenon known as Oprah. I mean, we just call her Oprah. We don't even know what some people don't even know what her last name is. The point is that from her pulpit of media, both through her television show and through her magazine, she has created a constituency that listens to her. They feel united on issues as diverse as the books they read, their political choices, and the way we love and how relationships should work. She's even teaching us about charity. Indra Nooyi is one of my favorites. Here she is, a woman, an Indian woman, living in the United States, has become the CEO and chairman of the fourth largest global brand in the world. And she says being foreign-born, being a woman, it makes you have to be smarter. She also is taking her brand, PepsiCo, a snack and beverage brand, and she's transforming it by making acquisitions like Tropicana. She said that there's no company in the future that can thrive unless they care about the health and well-being of their consumers. So she's trying to do the CEO chairman thing a little bit differently, bring a little bit more of a feminine perspective to the brand. Melinda Gates, a lot of people say, oh, well, that's Bill's wife. Well, no. Even Bill is the first to say that there would not be a Gates Foundation without Melinda. She is the brainchild of the Gates Foundation, which is considered the most generous nonprofit organization in the world today. And it's attracted people like Warren Buffett. Rather than starting his own foundation, he was so impressed with what they were doing that he decided that he was going to just piggyback on their organization. And he's come out and said that he thought that Melinda was really the one who came up with the ideas and the strategic concept. And if it weren't for her, he probably would not have decided to put his money behind the Gates Foundation.